I shouldn't have knocked on her door that night. It was late enough that the street was already quiet, the kind of silence where even a passing car feels too loud. I almost turned back twice, telling myself I had no reason to show up, not when her son, my friend, wasn't even around. But when the porch light flicked on and her shadow moved across the glass, I froze. My hand was still hovering near the doorframe when it opened. She stood there in a loose sweater, hair a little undone like she'd been fighting with it all day. Not the version of her I usually saw when she played the role of someone's mom. She looked softer. Tired, maybe. But real in a way that caught me off guard. "Hey," she said. A small, surprised smile tugged at her lips. "He's not home. You know that, right?" I nodded, embarrassed. My voice came out quicker than I wanted. "Yeah, I know. I was just around. Thought I'd stop by." Her brow lifted slightly, like she wanted to question that, but instead, she pushed the door open wider. "Well, you might as well come in then. No sense in standing out there." I stepped inside, and the first thing I noticed was how quiet her house felt without him. No video game sounds blaring from the living room, no chaos of someone running up and down the stairs. Just the hum of the fridge and a faint smell of coffee that must have gone cold hours ago. She motioned toward the couch, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear before sitting across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel myself overthinking every move, where to place my hands, whether to look directly at her, how not to make this seem strange. "You're awfully quiet tonight," she said, leaning back. "I guess I'm not sure what to say," I admitted. Her laugh was soft, low. "That makes two of us." It wasn't the words that caught me, it was the way she said them. Like she'd been carrying something heavier than small talk, but she wasn't ready to put it down yet. I found myself studying the details I usually ignored, the way her sleeve slipped just enough to show her wrist, the absent tap of her fingers against her knee, how her eyes didn't stay on me for long before drifting away. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her gaze flicked back to mine, and for a second, it felt like I'd crossed some invisible line. But instead of pulling back, she gave me this half-smile, half-sigh. "Long day," she said. Then, after a pause, "But it's nice to have company." That silence after, it wasn't awkward. It was charged, like we were both aware of something but neither of us wanted to name it. My chest felt too tight, my thoughts moving too fast, and still I stayed seated, hoping the moment wouldn't break too soon. Then, just as I opened my mouth to say something, anything, the sharp buzz of her phone on the table cut through the quiet. She reached for it quickly, her thumb hovering over the screen, but she didn't unlock it right away. Whatever was on that message, it froze her. I leaned forward slightly, catching the smallest shift in her expression, something between hesitation and guilt. When her eyes lifted back to mine, she didn't say a word. But she didn't have to. The air between us was already heavier than before. The phone buzz stopped, but the silence it left behind felt louder. She turned the screen face down without opening it, and I caught the faintest shake of her hand before she reached for her coffee mug instead. I pretended not to notice. That was easier than asking questions I had no right to. "Do you ever feel like some days just don't end?" she said after a moment, her voice quieter now, like she was half talking to herself. I gave a small laugh. "Most days, yeah." She smiled at that, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "When I was your age, I thought things would get easier with time. That life would make more sense. Turns out it just gets more complicated." I hesitated, unsure if she wanted me to respond or just listen. My mom used to say the same kind of thing, in the weeks before she left. That thought came uninvited, and I pushed it back down. "You've got a lot on your plate," I said carefully. Her gaze lingered on me a second too long. "You sound older than 20 sometimes." The way she said it, not mocking, not dismissive, made my face heat. I looked down at my hands. Guess I had to grow up fast. There it was. A crack in the door I usually kept shut. I didn't add more, but she tilted her head, studying me like she wanted to ask but stopped herself. Maybe because she knew what it was like, carrying things you don't always want to explain. Instead, she sighed, leaning back into the couch. You know, I haven't really had anyone to talk to in a long time. Not like this. That surprised me. She had friends, coworkers. People around all the time. But maybe that wasn't the same thing. What about, I caught myself, nearly saying her ex-husband's name. Everyone knew the divorce had been messy. She noticed the slip, though, because a faint smile tugged at her lips. Let's just say I'm not great at picking people who stay, she said softly. I wanted to say something, to tell her she deserved better, to tell her she deserved someone who actually saw her. But the word stuck in my throat. Because that someone, the way I meant it, couldn't be me. Not when I was sitting in her living room as her son's friend. The weight of that pressed down hard. Every second I spent here felt like standing too close to a line I wasn't supposed to cross. But then she shifted forward, resting her elbows on her knees, and looked at me again. Really looked. And for the first time that night, she didn't glance away. Sometimes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, it feels like you notice things no one else does. My chest tightened. I wanted to deny it, laugh it off, but I couldn't. Because she was right. I nodded once, and before I could think of what to do with my hands, she reached out lightly, just brushing her fingertips against mine, like testing whether the contact would burn. It did. But neither of us pulled back. Her fingers still rested against mine when the sharp creak of the front gate cut through the quiet. She pulled her hand back like the touch had burned after all, her body straightening in a single startled motion. I froze. Who? I started, but she was already moving, peering through the living room curtains. It's just the neighbor, she said, exhaling, though her shoulders didn't relax all the way. She let the curtain fall back, then caught me watching her. Something in her expression softened. See? You shouldn't even be here. If anyone saw, her words trailed off, but the meaning hung heavy between us. I know, I said quickly. My voice sounded more desperate than I meant. I'll go if you want. She hesitated. For a second too long. Then shook her head. No. Stay. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. The silence that followed carried every unspoken rule we were breaking just by sitting here. I tried to fill it. You ever think about how people would react if they knew things that weren't their business? She gave me a sideways glance, lips pressed together. More than you know. The air between us felt different now, tighter, like a string pulled close to snapping. I leaned forward without meaning to, words tumbling out before I could stop them. It's not just me, right? You feel it too? Her eyes widened, then flicked away. She stood up quickly, crossing to the kitchen. The distance was deliberate. You shouldn't say things like that. But she hadn't denied it. I followed, though slower, my hands shoved into my pockets. I shouldn't say it, or I shouldn't mean it. She stopped mid-step, her back to me. For a long moment she stayed there, hands gripping the counter, shoulders drawn tight. When she finally turned, her face held something close to panic. You don't understand, she whispered. This, whatever this is, it could ruin everything. The words stung, but I caught the crack in her voice. She wasn't telling me to leave. She was telling herself not to want what she already did. Before I could answer, the sudden ding of the front door unlocking made both of us jump. We looked at each other, the same thought hitting us at once. Her son. She rushed past me, meeting him at the door before he stepped in. You're early, she said too brightly, too fast. He shrugged, kicking off his shoes. Yeah, plans got cancelled. What's up? I stayed frozen in the kitchen doorway, pulse hammering. She glanced at me, the tiniest flicker of worry in her eyes. Nothing, she said quickly. We were just talking. Her son looked between us, suspicion flickering but fading almost as fast. Cool. I'm starving. Did you eat yet? As he disappeared upstairs to drop his bag, she turned back toward me. Our eyes met only for a second, but it was enough. The risk, the fear, the pull. And buried inside all of it, the fact that neither of us wanted to stop dinner was awkward. Her son filled the silence with stories from his day, and I tried to laugh at the right moments, but my chest was still tight from earlier. Across the table, she avoided my eyes, focusing too hard on her plate. Only once did her gaze slip toward me, and when it did, it lingered just a fraction too long. I couldn't shake it. That brush of her fingers in the living room. The way she didn't deny what I asked. Later, when he disappeared upstairs to shower, the silence dropped over us again, heavier this time. She gathered the plates, retreating to the sink. I followed without thinking. You don't have to, she started, but I cut her off. I can't do this anymore. She froze, a plate still in her hands. Water ran over her fingers, steam rising between us. Slowly, she set it down and turned. Her eyes searched mine, guarded, but trembling. Do what? She asked softly. Pretend I don't care. Pretend I don't notice you. Pretend you don't notice me back. The words rushed out, sharper than I intended. I don't know how you expect me to sit here, day after day, acting like I don't stop. Her voice broke. Her hand gripped the counter so tightly her knuckles went pale. I stepped closer anyway. You feel it too. I know you do. Her breath hitched, and for the first time she didn't look away. Her eyes glistened, wide and unblinking. You're 20, she whispered. You're my son's friend. If anyone found out, then they'd find out. My voice was low, desperate. But I can't keep pretending. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The distance between us had shrunk to almost nothing. I could feel the heat of her body, the tension vibrating off her in waves. She lifted a hand, like she might push me back, but instead, her fingers hovered just short of my chest, trembling. You have no idea how dangerous this is, she breathed. I caught her wrist gently, holding it between us. Then why are you shaking? Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. The air between us felt electric, charged to breaking. Every reason not to do this was crashing down around us, and yet, neither of us moved away. Her son's footsteps creaked on the stairs above. She jerked back, pulling her hand from mine. Go, she whispered urgently. Before this goes somewhere it can't. But her voice betrayed her. It wasn't firm. It wasn't final. I hesitated, searching her face for the truth she wouldn't say. And then, in the heavy silence of the kitchen, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, I don't trust myself when you're here. The words hit like a spark to gasoline. And then the bathroom door upstairs slammed shut, echoing through the house, giving us only seconds before we made a choice neither of us could undo. I left that night before anything else could happen. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't have to. The fear in her voice, the way her hand trembled as she pushed me toward the door, said enough. I told myself I'd give her space. But the truth? I couldn't stop replaying it. Her whisper. I don't trust myself when you're here. It should have been a warning. Instead, it kept me awake, burning holes through every thought. 2 days later, I was back on her street. Not planning to stop in. Just passing by. At least that's what I told myself. But then I saw it, a car in the driveway. Not hers. Not her son's. Something in my stomach sank. I lingered, telling myself to walk on, but when the door opened I froze. A man stepped out, older, sharp suit, briefcase in hand. He leaned down, kissed her cheek, and she let him. The image burned. She caught sight of me over his shoulder. For half a second, her expression faltered, eyes widening, mouth parting like she'd been caught. Then she recovered, smiling at the man as he got into his car and drove away. Only when the engine faded did she walk down the steps toward me. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly, her voice too even. Who was that? My words came out harsher than I meant, but I couldn't take them back. She didn't answer right away. Her hand went to her temple, rubbing lightly. Finally, she exhaled. Someone I've been seeing. On and off. It's nothing serious. The words hit harder than I expected. So that's it? You push me away, and then, don't. Her tone cut sharper than before, but her eyes betrayed her. Don't make this into something it can't be. You're too young. You're my son's friend. And she stopped herself, biting her lip. And you what? I pushed, voice low. You don't feel it? You don't replay that night in your head like I do? She flinched, and that was all the answer I needed. Her silence was louder than a confession. I stepped closer, and for a second she didn't move. Then, abruptly, she did. She put her hand on my chest and pushed me back. Not hard, but enough. Go home, she whispered. But her voice cracked on the last word. I turned away before she could see my face. Walking down that street, I realized what the real twist was. It wasn't that she had someone else, not really. It was that even with him, even with every reason to push me away, she still looked at me like she wanted what neither of us could admit. And now, for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could walk away again. I didn't plan on seeing her again so soon. But when she texted, "Can you stop by? He won't be home tonight," I didn't even hesitate. The house was dim when I walked in, only the kitchen light left on. She was at the table, wine glass half full, eyes heavy like she hadn't slept in days. "Thanks for coming," she said. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, almost fragile. I sat across from her, waiting, but she didn't start right away. She just swirled the glass in her hand, staring at the way the liquid clung to the sides. Finally, she spoke. "The man you saw, he's safe. Predictable. He doesn't make me feel out of control." She laughed bitterly. "Which is why I keep letting him come back. Because control feels easier than this." She gestured vaguely toward me. Her eyes finally lifted, meeting mine, and there was no wall this time. Just exhaustion. Honesty. "You scare me," she admitted. The words stung, but I leaned forward anyway. "Why? Because I'm younger?" "Because you see me," she whispered. "Not the version I try to show the world. You look at me like I'm still someone worth wanting. And I don't know how to handle that." Her voice cracked, and she set the glass down before it slipped. I reached across the table, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. My hand covered hers, and her fingers curled back, clinging like she'd been holding on alone for too long. "You don't have to handle it," I said quietly. "You just have to stop running from it." She shook her head, tears pooling now. "You don't understand the cost. If anyone finds out, I don't care," I cut in. My throat tightened, but I pushed on. I'd rather burn for this than spend the rest of my life pretending I don't feel it. Her breath hitched. She stood abruptly, pacing, her hands gripping her hair. "You make it sound so simple. But I've lived long enough to know love isn't simple. It's messy, it's cruel, it leaves scars." "Then let it scar me," I said. "At least it'll be real." That stopped her. She turned, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Slowly, she crossed the room until she was standing just inches away. Her hand came up, cupping my cheek, trembling but firm. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Then don't make me," I whispered. Her eyes flicked down, lingering at my mouth. For a heartbeat, it felt inevitable, the distance between us shrinking, the tension breaking. But she pulled back, tears slipping free. "I can't promise you forever," she said. "I can't promise this won't end in heartbreak." I stood too, closing the space. "I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for now." The silence stretched, pulsing, alive. And then, finally, she didn't pull away. The moment after we crossed that line didn't feel like fireworks. It wasn't a movie kiss, or some grand declaration. It was quieter than that. Fragile. Her forehead rested against mine, our breaths uneven, and for the first time in weeks, the tension that had been crushing both of us finally broke. When she pulled back, she didn't look away. Her eyes were swollen, but steadier. "We can't go back now," she whispered. "I don't want to," I said. And I meant it. She gave a small, broken laugh, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. "You sound so sure. Like the rest of the world won't matter." "Maybe it will," I admitted. "But right now, this matters more." We stayed like that for a while, standing in her dimly lit kitchen, knowing her son could come home any moment, knowing everything about this was risky. And still, neither of us moved. Later, we sat at the table again. She poured me water, her hands trembling less this time. The silence between us had changed. No longer suffocating, but heavy in a different way, the weight of choices made. "You should know," she said softly, "that man you saw, he doesn't mean what you think. He's safe, yes. But I don't feel alive with him." She paused, her eyes locking with mine. "You do that to me. And it terrifies me." I swallowed hard. "Then maybe that's how you know it's real." Her hand slid across the table, finding mine again. This time, she didn't pull away. We talked until the clock edged past midnight. Not about the future, not about labels, just small things. Memories. Dreams. The kind of conversation that only happens when the walls come down. I told her things I hadn't told anyone. She did the same. And for the first time, I didn't feel like her son's friend. I felt like me, seen in a way I hadn't in years. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. The night air was cool, carrying that strange sense of starting over. She hesitated, then touched my cheek, softer this time, no trembling. "Be careful with me," she said. "I will," I promised. And then I stepped into the night, my chest full, my head spinning, my whole world tilting. We didn't know what would come next. Maybe heartbreak. Maybe something lasting. But whatever it was ours. And for once, that was enough. Sparkles. The story closes with hope, honesty, and imperfect but real connection. Pushpin to end with YouTube engagement. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?